What if the problem you've been trying to fix was never about discipline in the first place? Today's conversation is about what happens when you stop forcing solutions and start building from lived experience, from struggling to scaling, and from developer to CEO super fast. If you've ever felt like you're outgrowing your current role, this one's going to hit for you today. Welcome to Female Founder Unplugged, the show where we cut through the noise and have a real, raw conversation about what it takes to build and scale a successful business as a female entrepreneur. I'm Lindsay White, people strategy expert, leadership coach, and fellow founder. And I know firsthand the challenges of scaling sustainably and staying connected to your passion along the way. This podcast is for ambitious women just like you, seasoned founders and CEOs navigating the challenges of leadership, team building, and sustainable growth. In each episode, we'll dive into those topics that are most important to you as a female founder. You'll hear honest, no BS conversations about building, growing, and leading a team and culture so that you can grow without losing yourself in the process. Because let's be real, entrepreneurship can feel isolating, and leadership doesn't come with a roadmap. If you've ever struggled with the pressure of running a business, felt overwhelmed by growing your team, or wondered, how do I scale without sacrificing my vision and my purpose? You're in the right place. Let's get unplugged. Hey, friends, welcome to another episode of the Female Founder Unplugged. And I have a really cool guest here today. And Aja is the founder and CEO of Shotsy, which is a super cool app that helps you manage your GLP-1 and how you use it, take it, manage it, remember it, all of the cool things. She showed it to me. It's the neatest thing. And not only am I excited to chat with her about her journey and the app, but also how she is growing and shifting as, moving from app developer to CEO and all the things that go along with that. So, Aja, welcome. Thank you for being a guest today.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. I'm so glad to be here. This is really exciting.
I'm glad to have you. And I know when we had our initial conversation, it was just like we had such great energy and it was such a cool chat. So I'm so glad you agreed to be a guest because I think these are two topics that are really top of mind. First of all, I mean, it is in the news every day about these GLP-1s. I love that you've developed something that really helps people. And I know you have a very personal story. I want you to share that with us. And then, of course, being a female founder and growing a business and what that looks and feels like. Okay, first of all, tell us about Shotsy and the genesis of that. How'd you create that? Where'd that come from?
Yes, it has been quite a journey this last year and a half, actually. So yeah, I am an app developer. I've been building different apps, trying to solve different problems for 7 or 8 years now. And then prior to that, I was a software developer and kind of a serial entrepreneur, but I struggled with finding a sustainable business model. Actually, I was more of a kind of a product developer maybe than somebody who really understood the business side of things at first. And so I launched a lot of different products and wasn't really finding anything that I could, rely on to pay the rent. And so I ended up taking a full-time job at the end of 2023, and it was at the New York Times as an app developer on one of their apps, the athletic sports journalism app. Got to work with a great team. But also, I was able to, get some great new health insurance, which was important because I am a person who has obesity. I've always had it. I've always struggled with my weight and my health. And, at that point, at the end of 2023, I was at the highest weight I'd ever been after, decades of doing all the different diets and all the, I've tried everything and, but it just, nothing would stick. And so when I heard about these new GLP-1 medications, Ozempic and all of the ones that have followed, I thought, okay, this is it. Like, this really sounds like something that's going to help me. And then it even, it took a while to actually access them, but because of that job, I was able to get started on one of them about 2 years ago, and it just immediately changed my life. It turned everything around for me. And I realized that there were a lot of aspects of this new experience that I really needed to be able to keep track of. A lot of things to remember, a lot of things to understand. And I was part of a Reddit community where a lot of people were discussing, different experiences. And I realized, this would be very helpful if it was an app. And so I built Shotsy kind of nights and weekends on the side from my day job, and launched it to that Reddit community, or, got some beta testers from that. Anyhow, sorry, anyhow.
No, that's super cool.
Yeah. But I launched it in early May of 2024. And it was the first app specifically for GLP-1 users in the App Store, and it immediately took off. And it's free to use, but there's a premium subscription that's optional, and people immediately started to purchase it. And so a few months after it launched, I was able to quit my day job and go full time on Shotsy, and it's all just kind of grown from there. So.
You know what? I think that is super cool. You really, I mean, that's what we're all trying to do as entrepreneurs, is identify the problem. Where are people getting stuck? What's tripping them up? What are they struggling? What's keeping them up at night? And you spun out of nothing, something that people have found incredibly valuable.
Yeah,
that's super cool.
I feel like I was very fortunate to be kind of in the right place at the right time, and to have a lot of experience behind me to sort of know what to do, and to know what would be the most useful thing to offer, I think.
Well, and I love that, because it comes from your own lived experience. And let me just say, as someone who has always or at least in my older adult years, has struggled with their weight. I used to be very athletic. Well, yeah, when you're running around all the time, it's not a problem. But as someone who is firmly in perimenopause, and has struggled with their weight, come from a family of pretty big ladies, the advent of these particular class of drugs is revolutionary for women, but men also, so that we can actually get a grip on our obesity, on our weight, and more importantly, on the blood sugar. The weight is one thing, but the blood sugar is a separate, that can be even more harmful. So I really love that. And it's like you brought the user experience, but also your own personal experience.
I can't believe how many things have changed for, my physical health, my mental health. I just, even before I started to lose weight, and I've lost 90 pounds, and, I'm at a healthy. Thank you.
For you. Congratulations.
Well,
that is no easy
correct,
feat.
Right? It's not easy. And of course it still took, I still changed what I was eating. I actually didn't do a lot of working out, but I did change what I was eating. But it became much more doable. I think in the past I knew, I understood how to make good food choices, but everything about having obesity would fight against it. It's just that food noise and the constant hunger, constant obsession with food, and then also kind of how my body would hold on to weight. It wasn't as simple as
every calorie.
It wasn't straightforward. I know a lot of internet commenters like to talk about calories in, calories out, and to some degree, sure, but that was not straightforward with my body, and it is now. Now now everything's working the way it's supposed to work, but it wasn't before. And I needed help. I have a condition that needs treatment, and once I had the treatment, I was able, all the knowledge that I had about eating and making healthy choices, suddenly it all worked in a way that it wasn't working before.
100%. And I think that if you are using those drugs as a tool in your toolbox, they are so valuable. And I love that your app really helps people do those things. It helps them remember. It helps them make a choice. Right? Yeah. That's the whole idea.
We definitely,
super cool,
we want people, these are expensive medications. They can be difficult to access, and we want to make sure that everybody who is taking them is getting the most out of that experience. We want everybody to have a great outcomes with these 100%. Medications.
Well, And they can have side effects like any drugs. So you want to be taking them right. You want to be managing that because you're right. It's an investment. It's time, money, effort.
Absolutely.
You want to maximize your investment. So having the right platform to do that.
Yeah, I think the more that you can understand how these work and how your body is responding to it, the better experience you're going to have, the better conversations you're going to be able to have with your doctor.
Yeah, 100%. You're not just being a passive, I just give myself a shot once a week. You are actively involved in what is transforming your body. That's meaningful.
Yeah.
Not just I'm losing weight, but I'm changing. The transformation. Oh, that's super cool. Okay. So I want to ask you about your transformation because you went from app developer to now you're kind of this accidental CEO.
Yeah.
You're in the hot seat, my friend. Tell us a little bit about, navigating that identity change.
That is such a, I think it's so funny how much of my life in particular has changed. Because in addition to all of these, physical transformations, this has also become my business, and my full-time job is now focusing on GLP-1s and GLP-1 tracking, and I was not expecting this. I was. I think I've spent a lot of time working independently. I haven't actually been on a lot of teams. I've generally done a lot of more independent work or client work as a freelancer. So I think one of the first challenges was that I didn't have a lot of, kind of employment experience to look back on and to sort of start to build mental models around what I wanted and what I didn't want. My time at the New York Times was very helpful. Like that was great experience. But prior to that, I had been independent for a long time. So, I think right away I needed to find mentors and to get people involved who had that experience. And I immediately started to try to figure out like, okay, if this is going to become a team, I need to be talking to people who understand what it looks like to build a team and, who are coming from backgrounds where they've seen good things work and things not work. So honestly, that was one of the things that shaped the early decision to pursue venture capital and to bring on investors, because I knew that, nobody's going to be as invested as somebody who's got, skin in the game, right?
Yeah.
And when you are able to team up with really wonderful investors, like, they're bought in on, literally bought in.
Literally.
Right. Yeah. And so you were able to like just immediately jump into, kind of a mentorship relationship, ideally, right? I mean, not all investors are equally, helpful as advisors, but I knew what I was looking for. And so I was able to team up with, 3 different VC firms that have been incredibly helpful and just really wonderful additions to, kind of the brain trust. And so I really look forward every month to, not only the investor update, but then we do a call where we all get together and talk about what happened the previous month, and then what goals we have, or what goals the company has moving forward. And because they're coming from really incredible backgrounds where they've just seen so many things that I haven't personally experienced, and they're able to weigh in on like, team building and, business models and all of this, like developing partnerships, navigating regulations. It's been, and just connecting me with so many incredible people that I think would just be very hard to do from my own personal networks.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's so wise that you picked partners, investors that bring more than just their money to the table. Like that, I think is really key. I also work on the other side with some VC firms, and I always say to them, it's more than just the product or the service. Mm-hmm. Who's leading this? What does the team look like? What's the bench strength? I think it's got to be a combination of the two. That's the successful recipe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, on the founder side, it's so important and helpful to work with investors who understand that,
Yes.
who like, it's, I don't think it's the right focus to only be thinking about the money aspect, right? Like that, because, ultimately we're providing value for our customers. We're building teams. This is about relationships and it can be I think an unhelpful distraction to focus only on the bottom line. I think you can lose track of these bigger picture things that are more important.
I think that's a great way to put it. And anyone who's listened to the show has heard me say this 1,000 times. Your people are your value. Like they are the ones that create all the value. You starting out, you started to create it. Now as the business grows, the people that you add are creating more value. Yes, the app itself is valuable. 100%. That's an incredible asset. But who's actually making that asset really work? It's the human beings. And if you're not investing in those, that actually you're leaving money on the table.
Yeah, I think money is that's the result of everything else being done well. And it's not you can't start with money as the goal because you'll miss all of these foundational pillars.
100%. So I want to ask you about, and this is maybe a little personal, so you tell me to get lost, but like from being a builder, a creator, a founder, now to being a leader. What does that transition look like for you?
Well, that is definitely a transition that is still in progress.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think, especially if anybody on my team is listening now, like we're definitely still navigating this. And I think especially again, because I'm coming from such an independent background, right? It's not just going from, focusing on building the product to focusing on building the team. It's also working alone to working with other people. And we are a fully distributed team. We're all over the world, from Portugal to New Zealand. I'm in Portland, Oregon. So we're everywhere.
Yeah.
And that adds its own challenges around team building. Yeah. And so it's a lot to navigate. It's a big identity shift. I will say that, I think at least I'm fortunate that my, what I love is building things. And so going from building an app to building a team actually does feel still like it feels like there's a lot of overlap there.
Yeah. I love that.
So I feel fortunate that I enjoy this new era of of how I can contribute, because I could see that if you really just didn't like it, it would be really challenging. But that said, I just there's a lot I need to learn. And that's still a work in progress. And so again, I am leaning on advisement and mentorship. I mean, honestly, maybe you can give me some pointers today.
Well, first and foremost, I mean, thank you for saying that. I think being humble as a leader is actually, and being vulnerable, that I think those are amazing leadership attributes, right? Like I'm still learning. It's still in progress. And that leads you to have a growth mindset around, I need feedback and I can always learn something and I can always experiment and do better. I think that's the most important. You're never done learning. No. Leadership's a journey, not a destination. So first and foremost, just having the right attitude, man, I think that's going to get you a whole lot further than, well, I'm the founder and I know everything. You can't grow from a place like that. So I love that. I love that you're open to that. But I also, your comment there about I'm a builder and I've just shifted my focus from building an app, from building a thing to building a team. And how do I use those transferable skills? And instead of being isolated and doing my own thing to build, now I can build in a group. Now I'm building with, some real energy and enthusiasm from others. What a super interesting way to frame it.
I think, and it really does feel, it does feel like how this works. I mean, I was a kid that loved playing with Legos as a kid. And it just feels like, okay, sometimes I'm building with code, and sometimes I'm building with, I don't know, ads and the more of the marketing kind of tool sets. Yeah. And then sometimes it's with figuring out how to design an org chart and figuring out how to hire effectively and how to, how to manage culture and what that means. But at the end of the day, it still has that same feeling to me of like, okay, here's all the pieces that we have. How can we put them together in a way that gives us the best results?
Yeah. No, I think I really am nodding emphatically. Nobody can see me but you. But I think that that's actually a cool way to approach it. I love your Lego metaphor. And I'm just going to extrapolate for a moment because this is how I see leadership is that, you used to build the Lego. Your hands were physically on the blocks. It was your imagination translated through those lovely little parts. And if you step on them, they're painful. But you can create all sorts of stuff. And now what you're doing is you're not touching the blocks. You've actually got really smart people to touch the blocks and build the things. You've got to keep those people motivated, creative, energized, working together, building the beautiful creations. And it sometimes can be difficult to get our hands off the blocks because we actually really like Lego, right?
That is absolutely true. And that is a big part of what we are still, we're in the process of navigating. This is you're describing a lot of what's happening now to a T. Yeah. I love playing with Legos. I love building the app. I love, I love to have that wonderful experience of going from an idea or a user request into a feature that's been shipped and people are starting to respond to it. I love getting to be hands-on with it. And there is a transition that has to be made where that is no longer appropriate for the company. There are a lot of other things that I need to be doing, and the product and engineering does not need me to be inserting myself as a bottleneck in the process. And it's tricky. It is tricky.
It's tricky to do that. Yeah. I want to acknowledge for you and for anybody else that's listening, that's really hard because you are really good at that.
Well, and it's fun. It's very fun.
And it's fun. Yeah. It is fun. And sometimes this leadership CEO stuff, it's not what you're really good at, and it's not nearly as much fun sometimes. Is that a fair thing to say?
It's fair. I mean, I think it's a different kind of fun.
It's a different kind of fun.
But it's true. I mean, it has to happen. There's no way to grow the company without getting me out of the day-to-day code and product development. And so, and also I'm not the best candidate for it either. Like we have, we're now so lucky to have people on the team that are much better at these specific things than I am because I'm a generalist. I am. Right. I'm doing the marketing and I'm doing the, the fundraising and all these other things. And so, it's, I'm sure, maybe some people are better at it than I am, but, eventually like you're spreading your energy across a lot of different things and you're not necessarily, getting as much expertise in a specific area as others. And so getting to work with people who are very specialized and know so much more about the inner workings of all of these things or new options that I hadn't heard of or considered is really exciting to get to come up with ideas and to take things so much further than I could do on my own. Of course, that's the whole point of having a team. Right. And so, so fortunately there's it's even though it's a little bittersweet to be giving up the, getting my hands off the toys.
I know.
It's gratifying to get to then immediately see it go so much further than I could do on my own. Yeah. So, I think, you get the positive, feedback right away, fortunately. And then, so we're just kind of in that process right now. And we're working on bringing on a new, head of engineering so that we can completely remove me from the process of getting the product shipped.
You've heard me talk about the LPC Accelerator. It's where we do the real work. The the leadership strategy, the people systems, and culture that actually holds when things get hard. It's part one-on-one coaching, part mastermind, and it's all about helping you lead with clarity, not chaos. If you've been listening and thinking, this is what I've been missing, our next cohort kicks off March the 2nd, and there's a spot for you. If you want to grow without burning out, this is the room to be in. You can send me a DM today to learn more, or check out the link in the show notes and it'll take you right to the page. I really think that is the smart CEO move, is to hire people that are better at that stuff than you are and get out of their way. Like, make sure that there's the right communication channels, the right approvals, the right accountability. You got to make sure that works. Let the smart kids do what you hired them to do. It's when we get in the middle of that. You said the word bottleneck. Man, when we start to become the bottleneck in our own company, we're not really acting as the CEO anymore. So I think it's great that you really acknowledge that this is the transition you're in.
Yeah.
This is the space. This is the space a lot of us are in.
And you're
right. Not
and
directly
you're
delivering
right
the work.
in the middle of doing it. You know, like things will be different 6 months from now than they are right now.
100%. 100%. And a year from now, it won't even look the same again.
It's wild to even be talking about 6 months and years, because, like, for the longest time, this still just felt like, oh, my little side project seems to have, like, oh, other people want it too. Like, wow. And now, we celebrated our first anniversary back in June, and now we're starting to think about the second anniversary, and we're starting to talk about what we're going to build next year. And I'm still amazed that we're at this point where my little nights and weekends side project is now a real business that has a real team and so many users. It's just, I think, you said something about, the identity shift. And I think even more than going from app developer to, the sort of the team leader, it's, I think, thinking about my day-to-day work as going from, being kind of a scrappy independent worker and then being an employee, and now having this, what appears to be maybe like an actual, like, real business that might last a while. Yeah. That I think is a very different, because I spent so much time working on ideas for businesses that didn't go anywhere that I kind of got used to that.
Oh, isn't that an interesting mindset shift?
Something that I've had to navigate over the last, and I wonder if your other listeners have experienced this too, when you've had a lot of, you've taken a lot of attempts to start something, and you kind of start to get used to that. Like, okay, I'm just going to be struggling kind of forever, and that's okay because I enjoy the struggle, and it's, I'll figure it out. Being on this side of it, and starting to look back on, like, whoa, we're still here a year later. We're still here 2 years later. Like, whoa, we're doing 401k plans, and we're doing health insurance. We're worrying about payroll taxes in different states. Starting to adapt to that, or, get comfortable with that reality has taken a while. Like, because for a long time, it felt like, oh, this is fun. We'll enjoy this while it lasts. But this won't be real, right? Like,
it is a real thing, and that's why I love to work with this group of female founders that are in this scale up stage, because it's not just the things that you do. It's not just the planning and the projects and the programs. It's actually, how do I, as the founder, how do I change the way I view the business, my business? Because normally we start out as a business of one. You said it, side hustle, right? How do I view my business, but also how do I view myself in relation to that business as it becomes its own entity? It takes on its own identity, its own culture. And actually that becomes a little separate from me. And how do I feel about that? Like that's
absolutely, yeah. And navigating that shift from, things being very reactionary in the beginning, like, oh, we're just figuring it out as we go, and we're building the plane as it's, midair, and that. If you've started a lot of different businesses, you're very comfortable with that environment. And it's actually a little bit harder for me, it was a little harder to get my head around, like, oh, we need to do like Q1 planning, and we need to be like, what is our product roadmap beyond the next couple of weeks? And with a team, that means it's much more important to be able to, make decisions early and communicate them out, and then not be changing them every week. I think just a lot of aspects of that shift have been really interesting to get to experience. And I wouldn't say that I'm fully acclimated to this new reality. There are still days when I wake up and I'm like, yeah, but the other shoe is going to drop, right? Like, this is all just going to, disappear as quickly as it arrived, isn't it? And then it doesn't. And now it's January, and we have the number one GLP-1 tracking app in the health and fitness category. And this is a really good month to be in that position. So it's like, okay, well, maybe this month we're going to be okay. And actually, maybe we are going to be executing our plan for next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I think you're right. I think in a lot of circumstances, especially as our businesses start to grow and scale and mature just a little bit, because there's a maturity in there. That's when you start to do the planning. That's when, just to, advocate for the work I do, you have to actually think about, who do you want on the bus? Yeah. It's not reactionary. Oh, we need another developer. Oh, we need an architect. Oh, we need a blah, blah, blah. I need to think about, if this is the plan for a year from now, who do we need in order to execute? What are the skill sets? What are the experience? Like, you have to really be thoughtful about who's on the bus with you. And then how are you driving the bus? Because when I think about building the plane, I always think about Madagascar and the penguins.
I love it.
Like, you don't want the penguins flying the plane while you're trying to build it. I don't know. I may be dating myself with that movie reference, but no, I think that you're really bringing up some really important points for this audience who are right in the middle of scaling their businesses right now. And these are all important factors. Yeah. Again, not just we need to make more money, we need to sell more things. Right? The momentum is carried by who we have in the business and how we're working together. And I think it's got to all work very well, or we can get, the growth can stagnate real quick. Yeah,
it's true. And I think that there are good reasons to be, kind of scrappy and reactionary. And, if you're a team of one or like a tiny team, then of course, right? Like it doesn't make sense to be layering in a lot of process and everything. But then you do, you reach a point where the practices that got you to this point are not going to get you to the next point.
Oh,
and you need to change. And that is, woof. Well, and it's also like something that I didn't appreciate when I was a young employee at large organizations, briefly, was that, like large organizations, there are good reasons that they don't make big changes quickly.
Yes.
And, at the time I was always so frustrated, like, oh, they could be doing this better. And why aren't they doing this? And I think, I read, it was probably in one of those Jim Collins books, but, I think it was, he had the analogy of like the little speedboat versus the battleship. And, there's pros and cons, right? When you're tiny and when you're kind of doing your own thing, like, you're very nimble. You can pivot very quickly. You can pursue opportunities very quickly. But, there are good things about having a battleship too, maybe it doesn't steer as quickly. Maybe it's, going to be a little more set in its ways, but there's other advantages. And, it took me a while to understand, like, okay, like there are valid reasons why you're not going to see that kind of, flexibility at a large organization, because they have, they have a lot to protect. And, And I think, of course, we're still not a very large organization, but because we have product market fit and, we have a successful business, I can see the beginnings of that. Like, oh, let's not break anything.
Yeah.
Like, let's make sure that we don't damage what we're doing.
Yes.
And also we have a very active and vocal user base that wants things to stay the way they are. And so, navigating that is really important. Like, it doesn't, okay, so we're going to update the brand, and we're going to, add new, support for different kinds of GLP-1s and everything. We should always be thinking about, like, how is that going to affect our existing user base? And is this, we don't want to be unnecessarily, changing things for people that would prefer not to have them changed. And so being respectful about that is an important part of our decision making.
You know what? And I think when we think about our customers, but also about our team members, I mean, employees, contractors, at this stage of growth, we often have a combination of both, right?
Yes.
None of us do change very well. Like, as human beings, anybody that says to me, oh, I love change, I always kind of look at that like a little bit of side eye, but because by and large, we don't do change well. And so, yes, as we scale, we need to be very conscious, especially as the most senior leader in our business. How is this change going to be impactful? What do people need in order to absorb and embrace this change? Whether it's the user experience or also the experience of our team in our culture, how we work together. We need to think about that.
Yeah, and being in a distributed team, it's even more important to be thinking about it, because a lot of stuff does not happen for free. You really do have to intentionally create culture and community.
You just won my heart. And I think I really do. I've worked in distributed teams or remote teams a lot. You have to be extremely intentional about your leadership and communication. That is the difference. When I see all of these organizations going back, mandating people back to the office, well, it just doesn't work for collaboration. It doesn't work for growth and leadership. It's because you're lazy. I'm being harsh and I'm being direct, but that's the truth of it. You have to work harder as a leader in a distributed environment to make sure that you're connected, you're clear, you're communicating, and people feel part of the culture.
Yeah, absolutely. The first startup that I ran for a couple of years a while back was in person. And so many things were easier. We had lunch together. Yes. We had, brown bag meetings at the end of the week. Like, there was just so much automatic, somebody bringing in muffins and just casual conversations. And none of that happens for free now. So, but it still needs to happen.
It still has to happen. That is absolutely true. And I think that sort of leads into my next question, was about how do you keep sort of that soul of your business as you scale, as you shift from being a startup to a scale up? Like, how do you keep the heart without losing that along the way?
Well, with that first startup I had an angel investor who had a really good bit of advice about culture, company culture. And I think especially for me, who's a very analytical person, I can't have that be a soft definition. I need it to be very clear. I'm very literal. And she said that culture is a reflection of what gets rewarded and what gets punished in an organization. Right. So, and that's so clear, right? Okay. If I look at it that way, then it's just incredibly important to make sure that you are, making it very clear, what do we want to see? What do we not want to see? And then being consistent about that.
Yes.
And I think I still have some room to grow there. I think that we could be doing more, especially with the remote aspect. I really do need to be proactive about communicating everything. I think taking every opportunity possible to reward the behavior, that sort of the contributions that you do want to see, and then to make it clear when others are not welcome. I mean, and things that are, I honestly, we use Slack as our communication tool. And I think things as simple as Slack communication can be really important. I think we've worked with folks who don't necessarily think that Slack participation is as important. And honestly, I think it is. Even something as simple as leaving the reaction emoji on posts, that is part 100%. Of culture when you have a distributed team. And yeah, I mean, I think it's important for everybody to kind of have a shared experience there, because otherwise we're social creatures. And if you're not kind of doing the bare minimum participation, then it's hard to understand what's going on. And so we've had meetings about reaction emojis in Slack, which is like the least fun thing ever. But I think you
seriously.
do. If it's going to be part of the culture, like, this is how we communicate with each other. This is how we show each other that we're here and that we're responding and we care. Then, it's important that it get corrected if it's not, if it's not happening.
Yes. I really appreciate that. And even that very simple example, I sort of define culture even more simplistically. The culture is how we do work together. And that's exactly what you're talking about. In our organization at Shotsy, the way we work together is we show up in Slack, even if that means giving people a thumbs up emoji. We turn our cameras on when we are in meetings, and we don't do, the side. I love it when the camera's to the left and you're looking to the right and typing away. We give each other eye contact. We tell each other the truth, right? Those are the ways we work together. And every organization is going to be a little bit different. Even inside of teams, you're going to have slight variations on a theme, but one of the key things you can do is just define it and talk about it. So yes, I know that there's probably people listening that are like, oh my God, they had a meeting about Slack emojis. Like, what the hell? Having the conversations and just articulating for people, hey, this is how we show up for each other in the Slack channel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it's not a problem, then great. You don't need to articulate it, but, and it reminds me of the Office Space movie. To date myself, there's the character who's not wearing enough bling on her vest, and she gets reprimanded for needing to put more flair on her vest. And so I know, right, it's very cringe.
Flair.
But at the same time, if it is a big part of how the rest of the team is interacting with each other, and then you do have to get ahead of hey, hey, when you don't ever respond to somebody's posts, it kind of leaves us hanging. We don't know.
Yes.
Did you read it? Do you care about us as people?
Are you dialed in? Are you with us? Right?
Yeah. And so, it is the least fun thing ever to be talking about that kind of thing. But it's I think it's part of, like you said, it's so important to communicate, especially when things are distributed. And if you're not making it clear, then you're not giving the people the information that they need. And, honestly, in that case, the response was that they didn't want to work with us anymore. And I thought that was
that's super cool.
that was totally valid. And, it was great. Now we all know. And if that's the case, and it wasn't just that, but if there's a mismatch, to that degree. And if we want different things, then great, let's find out. And, maybe now we can, avoid getting that far before we discover that. Maybe okay, 100%. Great. Let's make note of this for future relationships.
I think absolutely. Let us help you find a place where you fit better. And then actually, when we're doing our recruitment, let's make sure that we actually talk about that. That this is, if we don't make the expectation clear for people, how can they know if they're winning?
Yeah. And kind of
we can talk about that.
And when it comes to assumptions around remote work too, is people who have spent more time in person, maybe they don't want to work in a remote environment where you do have to put in a little, and we have we have other kind of rituals that we do as kind of getting to know you and doing little fun, fun stuff. And it's a little bit, that stuff is never as natural online as it would be in an office. But it's, we have to do it because otherwise you don't get to know each other and you don't do anything fun together. And so now we know, okay, that should be part of, interviewing and onboarding, is that we should talk about how we make remote work, as a team and make sure that they're okay with that kind of participation, because maybe they aren't. And that, that's totally valid, but it's not part of what we do.
I would, yes, and make it part of your recruitment.
Yeah.
Right? Like I actually think those are the kinds of things that need to go in great job descriptions, because when we talk about that, this is how we do the work together. This is how we connect. This is how we have fun.
Yes.
This is how we create. Then right from the start, someone who looks at that and is like, meh, no, thank you. Hard pass. Or the perfect candidate that says, hey, that sounds awesome. I would love to work in a place like that.
Yeah.
Bingo. Then we are actually helping people select whether we're the right place to work or not, right? We're showing them and telling them right from the beginning. So I think that is super cool. I think when we can take what we've built in our culture as a startup and we can really leverage that as we start to scale and grow, we can preserve those pieces that make our organization special. That's really powerful branding in terms of attracting talent.
That's such a good point. And I think as much as possible, it's so important for that to go all the way through, from not just the internal culture, but then also how that gets expressed to the customers and through the brand. Like it should all be coherent. Like nothing, you don't want any dissonance between how you behave externally and how you behave internally. So just I feel like I keep talking about like, oh, we have this like structured fun because we're remote.
But it is a little bit. I mean, I think that's a fair way to call it. We have some structured fun.
We get together every Thursday and we do 30 minutes of playing GeoGuessr in kind of a collaborative way. If you're familiar with GeoGuessr, it's like you're in Google Street View and you're trying to figure out where you are and put it on a map. It's very nerdy and but it's fun and it's on brand for us, because we're kind of nerdy and it's collaborative. We're not like really, concerned about who wins, but we have a great time like trying to figure out like, oh, I could like, what language is that? And like, oh, I can see a street sign, or like, oh, we're driving on the left side of the road, so it must be one of these countries. And like, that's such a structured kind of like, okay, we're going to do the mandatory team fun, but we have a good time. And it's something that, even though it's not really relevant to our product, I think the idea of it and the feel of it is very relevant to how we express ourselves to the customers. And that type of kind of playfulness, like nerdy playfulness, is something that we do want to try to embody in the product. So, we just launched a new Shotsy journey feature in December that's sort of like a Spotify Wrapped, but we can't call it that apparently because they trademarked it. but it's like it's a fun way to kind of look back on your journey so far with your GLP-1. And for the people who have experienced weight loss, we do kind of there's like a silly little animation that happens where it shows you the equivalent weight in bananas and the bananas all fall in, and there's this great little animation and you feel the haptics on the device, and it's silly but it's fun. Like how many bananas have you lost? And I think it's kind of that nerdy playfulness, not for everybody. Like we don't want to make the app obnoxious, but I think these little pockets of things where every once in a while we can kind of do something a little lighthearted is like that's very much part of our culture, internally and externally.
I love it. Listen, we spend a lot of time at work, whether we're in a remote environment or we're physically in the space together or we're some combination of both. If we cannot actually have fun, if we cannot laugh with the people that we work with, where are we going to find the joy and the fulfillment in the work? Right? Like that. And when it gets hard, we need to remember that there's times when we've laughed together too, because there's going to be hard. Like we know that for certain. So we got, even if we have to sort of set it up that this is, hey, we're going to have some mandated fun time now. But people look forward to that. Like you said, it becomes part of the way you work together. And I think that that's what's really key in building and maintaining a culture as we really start to scale and grow in a meaningful way, so that we retain some of the pieces that, made our scrappy little startup awesome to begin with. Yeah.
You're totally right. And we really see the value of that as we go. I mean, these little traditions and these little rituals, like they are, it's absolutely worth it. And it is such a big part of, what makes us, makes this team what it is these little moments that we repeat.
Oh, Aja, thank you so much. This is, I mean, I think we could both talk about this for another hour at least. So thank you. I mean, thank you for sharing about your personal journey. Thank you for sharing about your development as a leader. Thank you for sharing about some of the really cool things you're doing inside of your team to preserve your culture and just create a great space for people to work. That certainly speaks to my heart. That's why people listen to this show. So I'm super grateful that you've spent some time with us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. I mean, and honestly, I appreciate not only having the chance to talk to you, but I've picked up some important things in this call that I'm going to go take away and bring back to the team. So thank you so much.
Well, that makes me really happy. I mean, that's the whole point. So we can find you in the App Store, number one app right now. That's pretty cool. Where else can people go to find Shotsy?
Oh gosh, well, we're on iOS and Android, and then we have a website, shotsyapp.com, and then we've been having a lot of conversations with people on Reddit. So kind of that's where this started, and we have maintained our relationship there with the communities. So we'd love hearing from our users, and we would love to hear from more people, and we're always trying to make things better for everybody.
Amazing. Okay, well, thanks again. And everyone, go check out Shotsy. It's a pretty neat app. I've seen it, and it's super cool.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Female Founder Unplugged. If today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Connect with me on Instagram at High Volt Leadership and send me your questions or let me know your biggest takeaway. Looking for more strategies on scaling your business, building a powerhouse team, or leading with confidence? Head over to highvoltageleadership.ca or follow me on LinkedIn for exclusive content, resources, and special offers just for listeners. Until next time, keep leading, keep learning, and remember, the real magic happens when you're unplugged.
This podcast is produced, mixed, and edited by Cardinal Studio. For more information about how to start your own podcast, please visit www.cardinalstudio.co or email Mike at mike@cardinalstudio.co. You can also find the details in the show notes.